So this allows us to go from stores that are down the block straight up to the clouds and the drones with Betsy McGinn, the founder of McGinn E-com Consulting. Now, during our summer event, we started a thread on e-commerce, and 3 days after we started that thread, Amazon and Whole Foods tied that thread into a knot, which made a bunch of hungover BevNet and Project Nosh reporters work through a lot of headaches. So we're going to take a few minutes here to talk about the significance and status of that tie-up with Betsy, who's extremely well suited to this task. With seventh generation, she was one of the very first online sales managers in the natural products industry. And she has since helped dozens of consumer products companies build e-commerce both through revenue and through their presence online with Amazon and with other key partners. Now, Betsy also, I'm thrilled to say, brings a journalism degree from Duquesne. So that proves that there is a future for journalists in e-com consulting. And I've asked her to report for us on how the ongoing transition is affecting beverage companies. Betsy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I wanted to give you a little context before Jeff and I have a conversation, so I put a couple of slides together. And the first thing I want to do is provide you with some happy news about the beverage industry and e-commerce before we get into what some people see as a great opportunity, Whole Foods and Amazon, and some people have anxiety attacks when they think about what this means for their business. So the good news is that in the consumables categories online, beverage is one of the fastest growing. It represents over $500 million now, and it's growing at a rate of about 45%. So you're poised in a perfect position with products that people said, 10 years ago would never sell online. They're too heavy, they're too big, there's breakage, there's this, there's that, and now look at what we can accomplish online. And I think it's specifically because those are also products we don't want to schlep home in a case. So you're in a great position to be successful with this new merger. I like to share one of Jeff Bezos' favorite quotes. Today is day one, he likes to say. So that sort of frames his thinking. But recently a reporter asked him, well, what is day two? So his reply was, day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And I think that's really important to remember because that is what made the Whole Foods, Amazon merger purchase such a surprise. Because even those of us that are close to the business, I think were really surprised when this happened on June 16th. So just to create a little context about what that looks like. So Whole Foods is a $15.7 billion company. Sold to Amazon for about $13.7 billion. So within 2 days of the announcement of that acquisition, Amazon's market value increased by 14.7. So there's something going on with these lucky sevens here, but more importantly, just that increase in their value more than covered this acquisition. So it was a pretty tremendous play for them, considering it was their biggest acquisition. And in the first quarter of their business, which actually included only 1 month of Amazon ownership, the revenues grew at Whole Foods 4.4%, more than they have in 2 years. So what are some of the things that are happening? The first week, 25% increase in foot traffic. Some prices came down, a handful of prices, key products like avocados, bananas. And Business Insider did a little shop pre and post acquisition and found out that the shopping basket that they put together decreased by almost $20. So there is some legitimacy to the pricing that they instantly implemented. But as we all know from grocery, the margins are so slim that when you make those sorts of cuts, it's likely that you're going to have to make price increases somewhere else. And they've seen this happen in frozen, as well as snacks and some of the dairy items, but beverages, for some interesting reason, has gone down about 3%. So, no surprise, electronics have moved into the stores, some great Black Friday deals. Now there's some pop-up stores for the holidays, as well as Amazon lockers populating a lot of Whole Food locations. Prime, big surprise that Prime is now becoming the Whole Foods loyalty program. What a great opportunity for Amazon to take 10 million affluent Whole Foods consumers and try to understand them as they build both of these businesses. So what does that mean? Prime members, for example, around Thanksgiving got a decrease in the cost of turkey per pound versus other Whole Foods consumers. Also, not surprising, Amazon quickly put 1,000 Whole Foods products, private label products primarily, onto Amazon's website. Amazon was thoughtfully getting into the private label space, but why not buy such successful private label already? So many of the areas that really benefited from that are Amazon Fresh as they try to flesh that out. And in that particular first week of business, 93% of all the private label products that they brought online sold out, so they were out of stock. So this is one of my favorite books. I just wanted to let you know, if you would like to read a book that will help you understand how Amazon ticks, what the culture is, what the mentality is, and how that can be applied to Whole Foods, this is one of my favorite books, and I would encourage you to get it. It's a great story, fun reading, not dry, and I think it'll help to make you think about what's next.
So what's next here is our conversation about these things. And thank you very much, Betsy.
Thanks,
It was
Jeff.
terrific. Yeah. So you said 45% growth rate off of a $500 million base in sales already for beverages. Can you predict the future for us beyond that projection?
So,
I guess, what can the changes that we've seen already tell us about the way that ready-to-drink beverages are gonna work long-term, both online and off?
So I think one of the things that's most important to note about this acquisition is that Amazon's foray into the fresh business with Amazon Fresh started about a decade ago, but they've never really been able to scale that. This is going to enable them to do it by having about 450 warehouses, retail stores, where they can ship product out the front and out the back. So I think for beverages, that creates a great opportunity, especially ones that are in glass or have some perishability issues, because there's no big player that has really made the grocery delivery service viable nationally. There's great regional players, great local players, grocery stores getting into the business, but I can see how this could be an incredible opportunity for Amazon to scale and win in that space.
Now, when we were talking about this over the summer, we were talking about beverage companies sort of almost from the start thinking about incorporating e-com divisions and e-com package styles. I just wonder, with regard to this particular tie-up with Amazon going in the front and out the back, how some of our companies here should think about building capacity to meet this eventuality.
Well, a couple things I would say about that. One thing is, I think there are people that are still waiting to see how this will shake out. And it's probably going to be a good year before there's real clear direction. Jeff Bezos often makes things happen very quickly. If they don't work, they walk away from them. But again, I think Fresh is an example of really sticking it out because it's something that he believes in. And so I would not wait to find out what that is. If you're not in Whole Foods, if you're not on Amazon, I would say do not let the dust settle, but get going. What that means for your brand is you can't be too precious about what you think is important to the consumer in terms of packaging in particular, for example. Nobody has been able to solve for shipping glass. So if you have a beverage that's in glass, it really limits your potential with e-commerce. And even if you think, okay, I can wrap that in bubble wrap and it'll get there just fine, that's a very poor consumer experience. And so I think one of the most important things for brands to think about is how can they make their product and their pack e-commerce friendly. I think the other important, really important piece to consider is how to make this business profitable, because it has such a different model than brick and mortar. And most people don't consider that. Most brands think that, not most, some brands think that if they just put their product online, it will be an instant overnight success. And there's actually a lot of work that goes in up front to make sure that that can happen before ever stepping your toe onto Amazon.
Can you give us a quick tutorial in what you need to do to make that profitable up front?
So one of the things is to really consider the difference in trade rates. With brick and mortar, trade rates typically hover around 15%. With e-commerce, they're more like 30% plus additional marketing funds that you need to make your brand succeed. So that instantly factors into the equation. Another thing that we don't often think about is that when our product gets to the shelf in brick and mortar, it's there, it's ready to sell, the retailer knows their margin, they're happy with it, and so it's a done deal. But in e-commerce, you have to take shipping into consideration in that margin, right? And when you're talking about beverages, that can be a pretty high ticket, so you have to think about that as well. And so there needs to be some real true analysis in advance of how to make your product successful in that dynamic.
Because you're going to swallow a big hit in cost.
Yes, and if you're not profitable, Amazon will come to you for more funding. I don't necessarily think there is going to be a huge drive down in prices at Whole Foods as a result of this. I think there's going to be operational efficiencies because of Amazon stepping in. But I think just in general, to prepare for that whole profitability issue, whether it's Whole Foods or Amazon, is important front work you need to do.
So what's the impact been on the Thrives and the Walmarts of the world and the ways that beverages are able to turn them into advantageous or less advantageous partners?
I think they're both fantastic partners for two different reasons. So Walmart bought Jet.com last year. Mark Lohr is brilliant. He was the founder of the Quidsi family of sites, Diapers.com, Soap.com, which were very successful and purchased by Amazon and unfortunately shut down a couple of years ago. So I thought if anybody can do this, it's him. So he created Jet.com, which is purchased by Walmart. Jet serves a completely different consumer. They serve an urban millennial, which is very different than the Walmart demographic. So as a result of combining their superpowers, they've grown their business 63% in the last year, which is phenomenal considering Walmart was just kind of plodding along in that e-commerce space. And this expertise that they bought has really benefited them.
And again, how can our beverage companies here start to work with, and we did hear from Jet over the summer, but again, what are you seeing in terms of the way that beverage companies are starting to work with that organization?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think Jet is a great opportunity because as we saw here today from all the pitches earlier, most of the beverages coming out now are for that young urban millennial. Jet is so open to bringing on new brands that they are creating that open space and opportunity for beverages. To answer your question about Thrive, I think it's another similar example of that. They have they're very curated, so the opportunities aren't quite as vast. But if you have non-GMO products, it's become a prestige site for people to shop at. There are people that are really dedicated Thrive shoppers because they don't want to support the huge e-commerce partners. They really want to support mom and pops.
One of the early problems for beverage companies on Thrive was that they just weren't selling beverages very much. Is that started to change?
It is. Thrive has brought in some extremely great talent in addition to their existing talent that is helping them better understand and penetrate categories where they'd like to be more successful but haven't been. And I think that's a good example of one that you're going to see thrive at Thrive.
So one of the things that has always fascinated a lot of us about e-com is that in terms of sort of big package replacement, it seems to be thought of almost as a replacement for supermarkets or sometimes for club. But we just heard from Jesus that, it's really mobile and online are starting to really affect convenience retailing. So in terms of traditional retail channels, what's the right frame to think of e-com either as an augment or substitution pattern for?
So I've seen some of the most successful launches into e-commerce come from beverages because the limited shelf space that is largely controlled by large CPG companies is an issue. Again, looking at the creative beverages that were there this morning and trying to get shelf space at a Safeway or an Albertsons is expensive, it's daunting, and it just isn't that available. However, when I go to my local grocery store, they do have this selection of beverages because they know that consumers want them from a grab-and-go perspective in particular. So I think the opportunity is there for both. I don't think people will ever go away from grocery stores entirely, but we're seeing how grocery is having to reinvent itself, right? And that doesn't mean copying Walmart, it doesn't mean copying Amazon, but creating opportunities and offerings for consumers that make sense for them.
Should they be thinking to move away from the sort of multi-pack environment and use it more as a visibility outlet?
Brick and mortar?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that can be one avenue. I'm seeing more and more cold cases in grocery stores, huge selections of kombucha and alternative drinks. And that is more for the grab-and-go perspective than multi-pack buy. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's become so easy to buy your case of water or beverage online, and consumers are used to a price point online that's between $15 and $30. So that case sale has really become a key buying. It's a key price point. It's a key purchase item.
You don't lose as much by selling in bulk.
No, not at all.
Can you speak to ways really quickly that the deal has affected fresh and cold channel brands and their ability to grow?
So I think this is one of the most positive directions for fresh and cold. Again, because the fresh players, the grocery delivery players, which are just going to continue to grow, they're largely regional. And I think Amazon will be able to leverage this into more of a national fresh play. And one thing that if you don't know about Amazon, they want to have as much selection as possible, right? So if they can have the most interesting, exciting consumer products, whether they're beverages or something else, that is the best consumer experience. And that's the most important thing to them is consumer experience. And so it's definitely an important play for beverage brands because that's what Amazon wants. They want new, exciting, and they want full selection.
All right. Well, we hope you have excellent luck in helping these companies enhance their ability to be part of Amazon's full selection. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeff.